Hey everyone, on today's episode of The Elemental Shift, we will be making some ramen. So this is a tonkatsu ramen, and I'd say it's a little more involved, and if you've ever had it before, you know how rich and creamy the broth is. So we're gonna start with the eggs, because they take a couple days. So what you're gonna do is poke a little hole in the bottom of the egg, like this. And then you're gonna put it into the boiling water. And you're gonna boil for 6.5 minutes. While they're boiling, get a ice bath ready so that you can transfer the eggs into them once they are out of the boiling water, and cool them down pretty fast. So next we're gonna make the marinade for the eggs, or the brine. And so pretty much all you do is combine some soy sauce, some fish sauce, and pretty much whatever you want. You do want this to be salty. You want this to be so salty, in fact, that it burns your tongue. It should be too salty, because you're gonna put a little bit of this in a lot of water for the marinade, for the egg, or the brine, and so a little goes a long way. And then you're also gonna put this in the final broth to season it, because when you are making the broth, you don't put any salt in it, so that you get a little bit of extra umami from it, and it activates the glutamates and inasane in the actual broth itself to enhance the perceived umami. Just remember, it will be sitting for a couple days, so it absorbs all that flavor really well. Here I just have a few different types of soy sauce. You can just use one, or you don't even have to marinate the eggs if you don't want to. And then here I'm putting in some MSG. So you can be pretty generous with the MSG. That is the one thing I would say. So here I'm gonna heat it up and make sure that everything dissolves. I put some extra salt in here. So what I'm making right now is called a tare, and so this is actually a component of the egg marinade. So here I'm just peeling the eggs, and once they're peeled, I just put them in the jar and then let them sit. I put a paper towel on top to make sure that all bits of the egg are coated, and that's a pretty common practice. So for the broth, for this tonkatsu, I have some pork femurs and pork fat back, or pork back fat, and I can't remember if I used chicken. No, I don't think I used any chicken feet. That's a way to enhance the like to get a creamier broth, but these pork femurs were already pretty there was a lot of joints, so I didn't. But that's one thing you can do. So for this, all you have to do is blanch the bones and the chicken feet if you are gonna add them. And then all you have to do is put them on the pressure cooker for an hour at one pressure cooking, and then yeah, you can kind of just leave it, and then later there's more steps to it. So here we are making chashu, or the pork, and you're gonna combine water, soy sauce, mirin, brown sugar, um, green onion, ginger, and garlic. So this piece of pork is traditionally a pork belly, but here I have a it's called a Boston butt, but it's pretty much just a piece of braising pork. And so what you're gonna do is braise it, and then later, once it's done braising and you can easily put a chopstick through it with like little resistance, you're gonna roast it in the oven until it's nice and browned. So pretty much all you do is take it out and pat it dry, put it under the broiler at 500 degrees, and then get it nice and browned. After, your pork's gonna look like this, and so you're just gonna slice it into discs, and then when you're ready to serve it, you're gonna slice it when it's cold, and you're gonna put it in a bag with its braising liquid, so you should save that. And then you're gonna slice it because it's gonna be easier to slice and it's gonna hold its flavor better. And then you're gonna char it like this with a torch or under the broiler. So for the ramen, you're gonna start by making what's called a kansui. And so you're gonna make some baked baking soda, which is pretty simple to make. You're just gonna take baking soda, spread it out on a tray, and bake it in the oven. And you're gonna change the chemical formula of it to get baked baking soda, and then you're just gonna add it with some water, and then put it in the flour. If you want a more in-depth recipe for this, I would recommend watching The Way of Ramen. He has a pretty good recipe for it, and he goes a lot more in depth than I do here. So if you're thinking about the hydration of the dough, this is a very it's a very low hydration dough because there's not too much water compared to the flour. So this has to sit for a very long time before you can start rolling that out. So one of the things that I do after rolling or after letting it sit is I will step on it to flatten it out before I start the rolling process. Pretty much all you're gonna do is put it into 2 bags and just step on it until it feels nice and flat, and then you're gonna fold it over, step it on it again, and fold it over, and you keep doing this until you have one solid mass that's all together. So here you're gonna coat it with some cornstarch and start rolling it out. It's gonna be very hard, but don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. And then you're just gonna flatten it out enough for you to get it into a pasta cutter like this. And you're just gonna sheet the dough over and over again until it is nice and smooth. You're gonna run it through, you're gonna fold it over, and then run it through again. If you don't have one of these, you can do this by hand. I've done it before. It's very hard though. So I would recommend either buying prepackaged noodles or using one of these. But honestly, prepackaged noodles are sometimes better than what you can make yourself. So sometimes it's nice to just save the trouble. So to cut these into the actual ramen noodles, you're just gonna coat your dough sheets with some cornstarch again, like this. And these should be about the same thickness as the cutter, so that you get nice square noodles. And then you're gonna just run it through the finest cutter that you have, like this. This is actually me in Japan doing it on their machine, which is very nice, and it was so much easier to do on it because it was more secured than what we had. So to boil it, you're just gonna get a nice boiling pot of water and then cook them in there. I used one of these like hooks one of these strainers to strain the noodles. So after your broth is out of the pressure cooker, you're gonna put it in a big pot like this, and then put in your aromatics. It's really whatever aromatics you want, and then put in some dried anchovies. After it's simmered for a bit with your aromatics, like your Napa cabbage, and really whatever you want to put in there, you're gonna put it into a bowl and use the immersion blender to blend it up and emulsify all the fats into the broth. And then finally, when you're assembling it, you're gonna put some of your tare into the bowl. I did 3 scoops or 3 spoonfuls, and then 2 spoonfuls of the broth itself. And that should give you about the right ratio. But it's really to your taste, and actually I did 3 here. It's really to your taste, so you can add or subtract as much as you want. So after plating it, this is your final product. You get your eggs, and whatever toppings you want on top, and you get this. This is a shoyu ramen in Japan that we also made, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.